Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik
It
podcast.
remains to be seen whether it's exciting. We'll see.
Uh, we got a lot of news this week, a lot of good
Yeah.
stuff going on. I'm
hmm
pretty happy with the turnout. Um, I kind of said last week we might see this, but I wasn't quite sure where the .NET folks are at. There's a ton of .NET releases this week.
Yes,
They
there's a lot.
they pushed through the July 4th holidays, and looks like they dropped another .NET preview. So ASP.NET Preview 6. I'm going to highlight the .NET Core, ASP.NET Core stuff.
Mm.
There's stuff going on in .NET 8, but a lot of it's happening in the frameworks. So rather than hit the obligatory .NET 8 Preview 6 post, I've got the framework versions of that update. So starting out is the ASP.NET Core updates. The big chunk of this is Blazor, and I'm really happy to see this because the team there has been working on unifying Blazor. It used to be like, do you pick Blazor on the server or Blazor running in WebAssembly? And now we can just pick Blazor and ad hoc pick up whether it's running on the server or running in WebAssembly. And we could do it at the component level, the page level, the application level. It's piecemeal as you want to make it, or as holistic as you want to have it. And
Yep.
to do that, there's a lot of changes that have to happen to like how forms work, because you can't have like this mixed mode rendering and like a form that's on the server and posting back from the client without making some updates there. So there's model binding and validation changes for server rendering, um, enhanced page navigation and form handling, preservation of DOM elements while stream rendering, because they're adding that in the mix of all this too. Some streaming rendering, which is really
Yep.
cool. So
Yep.
as things are rendered on the server, they're delivered to the UI and update in real time. Interactive rendering with WebAssembly. So this is like if you have a Blazor component, like a page gets delivered, but like one component on that page that was delivered from the server needs to be interactive and you want to run it client side only, you can do that. And there's some things they added in the API for that. Some improvement with sections, blah, 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 some more housekeeping stuff, some templates, and
All right, we get
so
it.
on.
Lots of stuff with Blazor.
Lots of Blazor, lots of Blazor. So they've
The
got,
Power Glove is getting more powerful.
it is. If Thindle was here in chat, he would be, or is he? Thindle, are you around? He usually has the power gloves being thrown around in chat.
Sweet.
But there's some other API stuff, middleware stuff here as well. We talked a little bit about this last week, I think. The
Yes, we
Redis
did. Yeah, there's
caching.
a little bit. Yep, a little bit of that.
So like one of the changes that came with model binding for Blazor forms was this idea here that is, you might have multiple forms on the page, and one of those things is being rendered on client side,
hmm
and you could say, well, this model supplies the inputs for that form. It ties those two things together, so you're kind of matching up the form elements with the
Yep.
data that's coming
Gonna be,
across the wire.
there's going to be like one attribute you're going to have to apply to your code at the end of this. The direction they're going. They're making this so turnkey. I
Mm-hmm.
like it. I like it, but it's just the thing that I do worry about it at a certain level is if you need to, can you go lower? And I'm guessing, yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. But you want to make sure you keep that balance in check, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
make it too simplistic that you hide all the abstractions. And at the same time, you don't want to make it like, impossible to use because you've got so many knobs and switches to tweak.
So what's interesting here, John, and you'll probably see this, is at an API level, this is very similar to web forms.
Mm.
At an implementation level, it's very different technology under the hood. But
hmm
check this guy out, see if it sounds familiar to you. So you have a component.
You sound like a car salesman. Check this out. Automatic windshield wipers.
As I kick the tires of the
Yeah,
component.
that's right.
So check this out, John. Um, if we have a counter component, we have a property now called render mode, and we can render mode.server Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
It's like run
Yes.
at server.
Yes.
So you could do that now if you have a server page that is serving, multiple pieces of content, whether it's HTML, other Razor components, etc. And you have one component that actually is interactive. So you want to render the whole page on the server to get the most speed out of it, because not all these things the user is going to be touching and interacting with. But this one component, is there for the user to click buttons on and make things happen. So
Sure.
you say, I want to render that server side, or I want to render it WebAssembly, and then it'll decide how to actually deal with those interactions, whether it's using a WebSocket or whether it's using WebAssembly to do that. So
I
you can
gotcha.
set the call site at the component level. So that is new. If you want to set it at the WebAssembly level,
Yep.
you could set that render mode there
Yep.
as
Yep.
well. You could say whether you want it to pre-render or not, to at least give you options. I don't know why you might want to disable the pre-rendering, but that is an option. And there's some more housekeeping stuff here as well. So with this whole idea, remember I said there was one or the other. You got Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly. So there were two templates, but now that they're combining it all together, there's no longer a need for two templates. So they're consolidating those into a single UI where you can turn on and off individual features.
Yep.
Pretty much allowing you to start with the unified model and then kind of choose a direction if you want to do more server-centric or more WebAssembly.
Yeah, this direction doesn't surprise me at all. This is typically what you see with frameworks is they develop from the bottom up. You don't want to start building tooling on stuff that you're just figuring out in the framework, right? So if you turn on and off features at the Blazor level, for example, you may not want to expose that at the tool level until later on when it's become solidified. So this is what I expect further updates to include is more tooling support. So when you see features like better debugging and all these sorts of things that are touted, that's just a natural evolution of a framework. Is you make sure that those component baseline pieces are working well, and then you start building the tooling on top.
Yep, well said. Let's see if there was anything else in here. Yeah, I think that was about it. Most of that was Blazor, and then the next one here, announcing .NET Maui and .NET 8 Preview 6, Hello, VS Code, and VS for Mac.
This is exactly what I was just saying. This is like the tooling support. Here we go. See,
so
I
Blazor,
hate, Ed, there's times when I'm right, and there's times when I'm always right. And I think this is one of those times. So I'm kidding.
Yeah, the AR thing, we're still betting on that one.
I know. I got lucky here. All right.
So in .NET 7, they released Maui and Blazor Hybrid, and I haven't used VS Code or VS for Mac with these things, but I guess the support wasn't quite there yet. On .NET 8 Preview 6, they resolved 23 showstoppers, introduced native AOT for iOS, which is huge.
Yeah, that's thing. Big. Yeah.
Introduced a Visual Studio Maui extension.
Yes.
Visual Studio Code, Maui extension, and support for Visual Studio for Mac. Now, instead of going through like all of these fixed and improved details, there's links to like GitHub and things. I'm going to kind of gloss over that and go directly to the blog post announcing the Visual Studio extension, because this is the real like news bit, right? There's, they have to announce all of these little not little changes, but all of the individual line items that make up the bulk of the underpinnings of Maui. But the real news that's going to impact you as a developer is right here, where you've got the extension for Visual Studio Code, where you can jump in and start building Maui apps. So there's a whole blog post here by Maddie that is outlining this new plugin for Visual Studio Code. So you can go out to the marketplace and grab the new extension, And this is going to, give you the things that you have basically in Visual Studio for building a Maui application.
This is huge, especially when you consider, VS Code is multi-plat as well, so you can run it Mac, Linux, Windows. You now have a framework that supports Mac, Mac, Linux, Windows. So the permutations, I did a little bit of high school math and university math. The amount of
Yep.
permutations in this are pretty extraordinary. So it doesn't surprise me that this is coming well into the dev cycle around Maui. I would expect it at the very end for sure. So I'm happy to see this.
Yeah, I think you got like the real highlight of this correct too. It's the fact that Maui can run on pretty much any major operating system now. So you might be, primarily developing on, say, a Windows machine and doing testing and things on your Windows box, but you also have to deploy to these other platforms. Maybe you want to do some testing
Yep.
on a Mac or something like that. So you can jump over to your Mac, and instead of installing all of Visual Studio for Mac, you can just jump into VS Code, open the same code base up, give it a run, and do your testing there on your Mac from Visual Studio Code. So it gives you some nice portability there.
It's so beautiful. I'm like wiping away a tear. Sorry.
It's happening.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got your .NET Maui, and we talked about this C# Dev Kit extension last week.
Yeah.
So all these things kind of play together. So you've got all of the .NET code editing powered by Roslyn in there, debugging on any target.
That's a big one. That's a huge one. Props to the team. Like that's like look at the matrix of permutations there. Like I think this is such a small paragraph for the amount of work that it represents. Like think about all the ways you have to connect, So kudos to the team.
What's really cool, I don't have a demo of it I can do right now, but I'm sure we will kind of kick the tires on this next week with Daniel Roth. But one thing that's really neat, John, is you can build a Blazor hybrid app, which is essentially running a web view inside of a Maui app that lets you use HTML, CSS, C# to build on any platform. And if I run into an issue, I can open up Chrome or Edge and hit F12.
Yes.
And then I can tell it to connect to that Blazor hybrid app, and I get full debugging, like browser debugging.
I'm wondering if you can do this in the dev. Can you do this in the dev boxes yet that Microsoft's touting now? I'm imagining you can. Yeah. So it's a completely virtual world now with this.
I have everything on my laptop ready to go off to Redmond and talk to our audience from there next week. We've got a live show coming up. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I'll talk about that in just a minute.
It's a teaser.
We've got the the getting started experience as well in Visual Studio Code, which Visual Studio Code has some really nice pluggable UI where you can create really nice getting started interfaces and stuff. We have some of these with the Telerik UI stuff. You do like file new project and you get like the whole step-by-step creation wizard in here.
Yes.
Because this thing's basically a browser, right? So you can build any kind of GUI inside here with the developer tools for Visual Studio Code.
Just not as convoluted as VS proper. So VS Code is just VS is a nightmare to develop these things for. So
yes, I was trying to be nice, John.
I'll say it.
Go straight for the jugular.
Well, I've done it. I've done that work before. I'm like, ugh, what is this?
I've done that work and thrown it away because there's bugs that they didn't fix for like 10 versions and still haven't fixed, and I just gave up waiting. So yeah, it's frustrating sometimes. VS Code, it's a different story. You can make some really nice launcher apps there. So you've got that, and of course, make sure you report bugs and share feedback with Maddie. Next week, I will be in the Redmond area on the Microsoft Campus. Sam Basu, Daniel Roth, and me are doing a show from the what used to be Channel 9 Studios. I think that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the Microsoft Learn Studios now.
There you go.
We will be in studio. We're going to talk about modernizing your app production with Blazor Hybrid. And I'll show some of the debugging capabilities and things I talked about. I've got an ebook that I just wrote that has how to build a web, desktop, and mobile application with one code base with unit tests and everything right there. And we'll talk about
You're
all of
I
that.
gotta say, Ed, you're flexing pretty hard during this live stream, so just take it down a notch, all right? You're
I'm
at
pretty
11.
excited for next week. We got the .NET 8 preview just dropped with
Look at
all the
you with
stuff I've
Maui.
been waiting for.
You with Blazor and Sam with Mao. You guys are just kissing your biceps the whole time. You know, you guys are just like, look at us. Who would have thought, huh? Not me.
Well, see,
You
what
know,
we need is one shirt that fits two people now. Like Sam and I, like we've got this crossover going where like I could like take my right arm and he could take his left arm. We
Yep.
could just kind of like hook them together underneath the shirt there, and then we could be each other's torso. So
I've seen the CSI episode where they're hacking, they're getting hacked, and they both type on the keyboard at the same time. So yeah, you and Ed I would like to see you and Sam, excuse me, do that. So
if you want to watch that show, it's going to be on Monday next week,
cool.
2 p.m. Eastern time. So Sam and I get up early there in the Redmond area, go talk to Dan and share some cool bits with everybody.
Yeah.
Make sure you check that out. You just follow the Twitch stream here to get that. And more .NET, John. Some JetBrains stuff this time.
Yeah, this was something that I wasn't aware that it had actually occurred, but BenchmarkNet is a framework for integrating traces, etc., for development purposes. So if you're wanting to do profiling basically of .NET applications, BenchmarkNet is a library that you can use to do that. .trace is a capability provided by JetBrains, which is basically their sort of tracing framework / UI tool. And so it's kind of like it's like Maui and Blazor. It's peanut butter and chocolate coming together. .trace and BenchmarkNet coming together. So basically, if you're wanting to utilize parts and pieces of .trace relative to the framework and then have those parts and pieces permeate out through BenchmarkNet, you can do that now. And so this is a blog post that talks a little bit about how to get that thing up and rolling, and that shows some examples of what that looks like from a code perspective. So the idea is that you'll litter your code with a variety of attributes just like you would in any other framework, and this will enable or disable tracing. You can set up benchmarks, you can set up profiles, etc. So these the game of life as an example here, classic example. Generic algorithm, and then you propagate these benchmarks out, and then you can take a look at the profiling snapshots as you go.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of nice.
And then our last Microsoft
topic
themed here. I was very Microsoft heavy this week.
I know.
I'm kind of going out there to be on campus next week, so it's all very fitting.
So Microsoft has a very, very long and I guess a generous description, checkered history of the Windows Insider program. I say that because the Windows Insider program has been awesome in some ways, but also very, very not awesome in others. And because you get features that just ship and then no one writes about them, and then you're like kind of questioning what these things are. And if you want to know the pain of existence that is the Windows Insiders program, you can talk to guys like Paul Thurrott, who basically has to rev all his books and stuff with new images because features just happen to ship in the Insider channel. Anyways, that being said, the thing that caught my attention was that little bit there in the middle, Rust in the Windows kernel. Now, we had talked about this earlier. Mark Rasinovich, who's the CTO of Azure, had talked a little bit about if you're building any systems today, high performance, low level systems, rather than utilizing C, C++, you should be utilizing Rust. And so I think this is part of their investment towards that aim, which is basically providing aspects of Rust deeper in the guts of the Windows kernel. So, yeah, just an interesting development that I saw as part of this blog post. I mean, yeah, there's all the other stuff that kind of goes without saying with the updates themselves, but that one caught my attention. And the reason why is because of the potential it has for the long
Yeah.
term.
I mean, you could potentially have things like, system level drivers, stuff like that being written in Rust versus C++. So like maybe like your NVIDIA driver, your printer driver.
Finally, my
all
printer
sorts
may
of things.
my printer may actually print. Yes, without blue screening.
And just in case any of John's family is watching, like John is more than happy to help set up your printers.
Oh yes,
Come
of
over,
course.
troubleshoot them anytime. Just ask.
It's that classic Windows 98 demonstration where you lift the lid of the scanner and then it blue screens. So there you go.
My wife used to teach fitness, and she taught all different sorts of things. But one of the classes she had was called Silver Sneakers, which is for seniors 65 and older.
Oh, okay.
Do fitness.
Oh,
And
good name. I like that.
they would always ask, what does your husband do? And she's like, he works with computers or whatever. So one day I'm in the parking lot picking her up from work, and this guy drives up and he's like, your wife tells me you're good with computers. I'm like,
good.
Yes.
Here
And
we
he's
go.
like, I can't get my CD out of the CD thing in the car. So he had bought a car with like a 6-disc changer in it. And he put the CD in and it got eaten and put in the rotation and never came back out.
So now you're a car repair person as well. So there you go.
Exactly. I mean, it's computerized, right?
Yeah.
So naturally I had to fix that on the fly in the parking lot. So yeah, us software people, we've all had those experiences. Anyhow, getting off topic. Yes. Tell us more about Go, John.
Yes. So the tools team has been busy. Go Vulncheck 1.0 has just been released. This is a tool that you can use. It's a command line tool that will inspect your code for any known vulnerabilities. What are those known vulnerabilities, you may ask? Not hearing you, of course. They basically encompass a variety of known sort of exploits that have been propagated into the Go vulnerability database, which you'll see linked there. So if you go to vuln.go.dev, that is the link that will take you to that database. And so this is kind of like a static code check analysis tool, much in the same lines of FXCOP, but rather than being focused on code structure and format, this one's focused on vulnerabilities. The reason why that's the case is because Go, by default, when you save, will auto format. So the Go format for code is basically pretty strict. It's like, no, you're going to structure your code this way, and we don't care what you say. This is how it gets formatted. In a way, that's nice because code looks almost identical across different repos that you read. It all looks the same, basically, which is intentional. If you have sort of special styles, etc., and they vary from repo to repo. If you're a Java developer, you're a C# developer, when you run from one repo to the next, you're like, oh, this person doesn't care about 80 character line widths, for example. They're using 200 or something like it can be a bit disorienting, whereas Go doesn't have that. So that's why it's just a vulnerability checker. It's not a formatter like, say, FXCOP would be, for example, in addition to static code checks. So yeah, this is a tool that I think you should use and check against the vulnerability database that's now available.
Yeah, I used to have a disk that was dedicated to stuff like this. It was like a
floppy?
No, it was a CD or DVD. You drop it in and it would boot. It would boot from the DVD, and it was like a white hat like hacker tool, and you could use it to like scan your .NET code for vulnerabilities.
Interesting.
It would do all sorts of stuff. It was like one of those, for one thing, you want to isolate your system from, bad stuff. So you just drop this thing in and it boots up.
Yes.
And it's
bootable
its
drive,
own sandbox.
Yes.
And it used to have like all these utilities for doing like ethical hacking. I'm sure they still exist. I just haven't done it.
Oh yeah, like I've used in the past. I've used dban boot and nuke, which is shout out to dban. Basically, it's a similar sort of image that you map to a CD-ROM, and if you want to zero your hard drive, this is the tool to do it. So I used to do this whenever I would recycle an old PC, and I wanted to make sure all the memory. Not that I have anything that that I care about, but just for compliance with company policies, like make sure you delete files. Like, no, if I run this thing, it will zero everything. So yeah, there's tools like that all the time that you can grab. I think they're all on thumb drives now, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
but
dated
yeah.
myself a bit there, but it was a
I
DVD back in the
fired up the
day.
old 5.25 floppy drive. Here we go.
I fed the cards in. That's
That's
when it.
right. Anyone got an 8 track? There you
So
go.
it's something similar, like just doing a quick search here. I can't remember what the one I used to use was called because it had a lot of .NET centric things on it.
Yeah. I know
This
you're talking about those tools.
very
Sometimes
common
you
one
get them in
though.
magazines.
Katana.
Yeah.
Katana is one of them. It's up on
Yeah.
SourceForge if you want to check something like that out. It's got all the white hat penetration testing stuff.
I used to pick up those gaming magazines, and they would give you a CD or DVD-ROM drive with like demos on them and stuff. And so
yeah, this reminds me a little bit of that. It's pretty cool stuff.
there you
go. John, what are HTTP headers?
I have no idea.
Curious.
It's a blog post from the folks over at Postman. Postman's a wonderful tool. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend you go check it out. It can serve as a complementary tool to Fiddler. So shout out to Fiddler. But this is an article I think that is, it's one of those articles that you read and you're like, yeah, okay, I know what these things are. But it's important. Like, people coming to the industry may not have really realized that there are these things called HTTP headers that fly around the internet. And what do they do? And I've looked at them and I don't know what they like. They're like, when you look at like MIME headers, right? You're like, I don't know what these things are. Well, this is a great blog post that kind of provides a summary. It talks about cores, talks about content types, talks about, what impacts those things have. They are important. Header, there are a lot of headers out there. And if you don't believe me, just go fire up Chrome DevTools or Postman or Fiddler and go inspect what's getting sent to and from your favorite websites, and you'll see them. What's really interesting is the proliferation of sort of like extensibility headers, right? Those X- custom HP headers as well. But it never ceases to amaze me just how many people will publish an API, for example, and they'll forget accept types, or they'll emit as non-JSON, right? Like, and even though they're sending you back as JSON, right? And so these things are important because tooling will key off of these headers. Like, it's like, oh, you're sending me back application/JSON. Great. I will assume that. I will not assume, text, whatever. Right. So, and then people hijack things like user agent strings. Is like, I just love, like, if you want to have fun, go take a look at the various attempts that have been made to regex user agent strings. Oh God. So yeah, all these things and more are important to know. So this is a very sort of 101 type article, but I think a good one.
They help you troubleshoot too if you're doing any like front end dev stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's one common one that I run into all the time with front end code, and that is you go to hit an API and you miss for some reason. Usually it's because you misspelled something in a magic string for the URL for that thing.
Yep.
And instead of getting a JSON response that's like a 400,
you get a 404
or
reply.
a 200, whatever, you get a 400, which is an HTML page, not a JSON response.
Yes,
so the thing you're trying to bind JSON data to just
and then it blows up. And then it says cannot read character 0 at line 0, whatever. I'm like,
and it's like the less than sign because it's opening a HTML page. It's like,
yep.
So we get away from all this stuff and dive into some AI news, John. AI news.
Sure, why not? Why not?
We've been beat up with AI news lately. It is just everywhere, all the time. This is one that I saw that I thought was creepy, but still kind of cool, but also super creepy. This is using AI to pick fruit with these drones, with these arms. And this looks like something out of the Matrix. Like, this is how we get assimilated into the Matrix, isn't it? Like these creepy jellyfish.
Not far off. I mean, I watched The Matrix many times, and there's those scenes where they show the robots using us as Duracell batteries, and they're basically taking dud humans and recycling them. So it's not too far off.
Yeah, that's what came to mind when I saw this.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Although, like, if you look at this frame by frame, you can also see, and I don't know if this is the robots, it could just be the fact that apples fall from trees, but look at all the apples on the ground.
Oh God, yeah.
It's
Good,
like,
good catch.
who did
Yeah,
that? Was that already
yeah.
there? Did they do it picking? I don't know. But I thought that was so cool, but yet so creepy at the same time. It's just like the thing of nightmares right there. So yeah, that one was noteworthy. And then I thought this was a very interesting thing that's happening. So Sarah Silverman, one of my favorite comics, is suing OpenAI and Meta for copyright infringement because the AI models were trained on things that she had written without her permission.
Yeah.
So this will probably be a landmark case to
Yes.
set some precedent for these AI generation tools. So I
Yes.
thought that was just worth kind of bringing up. As an
I'm
interesting.
curious so I guess she has evidence that there are, well, yeah, I can see, like, if you were to ask or ChatGPT, like, tell me about this book or that book, it's not, or tell me what she said on page 200 or something. I guess it would answer the question. So is that a copyright violation or not? I don't know. So
Yeah, I guess
I
there's
mean,
it's able to summarize her books. So
yes.
if it's able to summarize her books, then it has read her books and uses it in outputs. So
Yeah, but
so we'll see where
I
this
don't know.
goes.
Like, yeah, it's slippery. There's a little bit of slippery. There's a little slip and slide going on here, I think. So got to be careful because I'm a strong copy left advocate. I believe that we should have the ability to mix, rip, and burn content. We live in a commons. I'm a very big Lawrence Lessig fan. So, folks, shout out to Lawrence Lessig, who tried a very hard fight with this. Talks about copyright law, etc., trademarks, etc. So, yeah, gotta be careful. That's all.
I guess some of the places they're scanning for these books is not legitimate sites either. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
Like, so her content is not where it should have been scanned by these things, but they're going through these like
torrents.
Yeah, basically they're pirated sources to gain.
Yeah, I mean, where does the onus lie in that case, right? Like, oh God, I could argue this for
it's
hours,
a rabbit
right?
hole. It's
like, exactly.
Comes back and eats its own tail type of thing. And then a little bit of AR VR news, John, because I know you love that stuff. Nothing to just trigger you today, unfortunately. But it was worth mentioning that it's 7 years, 7th anniversary for Pokemon Go.
My kids are going ballistic on this right now. I thought this was dead. I didn't realize this was still a thing, Pokemon Go.
I told you augmented reality was going to be a success. It already is. It already is. 7 years it's been going on. This is the longest running augmented reality.
All I remember playing this. I remember playing this when it first came out, and I was like, "This thing just destroys my battery." Like, that's all I remember. And now my kids are using it, and I don't know. It's all right.
We've been living with AR for 7 years. There's only one app that's done it, but hooray for Pokemon Go for breaking through to the other side and making the metaverse a real thing. Before it was cool.
That's right.
There's that. And then this one is more of a tongue-in-cheek thing for me anyway. The ridiculousness that is the Apple Vision Pro just keeps getting worse, in my opinion. Not a big fan of it. I wanted to be so bad, and then the stupidity just keeps happening, John. So you'll need, quote, an appointment, a head scan, and a prescription to buy the Vision Pro and $3,500. We're really narrowing down the audience here. Like, So to go back, just put things in perspective as far as like these type of products go. So Microsoft introduces the Xbox, right? And they come out with this cool little gadget called the Kinect. It does some really cool stuff. It's not augmented reality, but still, it's a tech accessory. They charge $100 for it, right? It doesn't come with the system, so it fails miserably. Just because it's not part of the bundle out of the box with all of the Xboxes. Yet for some reason, we're going to believe that people are going to pay $3,500, make an appointment to go get their head scanned, get a eyeglass prescription, and purchase this thing so they can watch movies alone, projected as large as they'd like.
Yep. I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
I rest my case. I mean, I don't know
People
what more.
wouldn't buy a $100 accessory for their Xbox to make it profitable enough for developers to go, hey, there's gonna be a Kinect on every one of these.
And you know what? Someone greenlit this. People sat around in a boardroom and thought this was a good idea to put all these requirements and the price tag and everything on top. Yeah, this will sell totally.
To acquire a Vision Pro, customers must first schedule a fitting appointment. A special machine and an iPhone will scan the user's head so Apple can determine the proper headband light seal size. Oh my gosh. Then you have to go get an eye test done and get a prescription. And then you have to pay $3,500. I don't know if this was verified or not. I was just kind of glancing over this.
Okay.
But, it is on TechSpot. They're writing about it. They probably got some information that this is a thing. So,
all right.
If this is true, like there's nobody getting these things. It's going to be just a few like Apple fanatics that buy them. There'll probably be less of these than a HoloLens, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. You don't have to get a prescription and a head scan and all of that to get a HoloLens, and they're about the same price. I don't see it happening. Just don't.
What's interesting there is that second paragraph, the company's stated reason for the current launch stage is to give developers time to build compelling software, but manufacturing troubles may be the true cause. Early reports indicate that Apple cut its initial production goals of Vision Pro by almost 90%. I don't think that's manufacturing problems. I think that's
they're gonna be.
I think that's initial uptake.
Initial sales are limited to the U.S., with international coming in late 2024. So that's even. Mm-hmm. What developer is jumping all over this?
No one.
Like, who's investing dollars?
I don't hear anyone talk about this with any excitement. Now, you compare this to the iPhone. People were elbowing each other to download Xcode, right? And start building apps and like lay their claim. No one is, as far as I can tell, this is my very ignorant, limited view. But no one is scrambling to download the dev kits for this.
Of course, the comments are spot on. You definitely need to get your head tested if you're going to buy one of these. I will agree with that one. 100%. I think the only saving grace here is the fact that they have a partnership with Unity, and Unity seems to be like the safe horse to bet on for any of this stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So don't invest your skills and effort and dollars into a platform, but rather learn something like Unity, invest in software to build
that makes
Unity
sense.
apps. And then when something does start gaining some traction, you can port your app properly to whatever, Meta thing or Apple thing or Snapchat thing that exists. Because I think almost everybody is standardizing on Apple or on Unity and Unreal, I think, are the two big game engines that are dominating the space.
Yep.
So that's my opinion of the whole thing.
Look, I wish Apple the best of luck, but I don't know.
Makes me wonder what did they use for Pokemon Go? What is that? The infrastructure for that?
Well, it did crash a lot when it first shipped. I remember my phone got incredibly hot when I used it. I haven't used it in years, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay. You ready for this one, John? I just typed in, what game engine does Pokemon Go use? Any guesses?
Uh, Visual Basic. Who knows?
Unity.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. So like I said, that's what I would invest my time in, probably, is
All
learning
right,
Unity, instead of,
it's a fair call.
making my appointment to get my head scanned. Learn some
Fair
Unity.
call.
Learn some Unity. And if this thing does work somehow, you're still making a safe bet. All right, John. That's all I've got for this week. All right. We'll see you next week, folks. Take care.
See ya.